I'm trusting Jake, so welcome to the 30th episode of the Illegal Use of Hands to the Face Football Podcast. How you doing, Jake?
Doing great, Hayden. How are you?
I am absolutely tremendous. Boy, the Eagles feel like an inverted, take whatever the standard issue NFL team is and just completely flip it on its head, and you've got the Philadelphia Eagles coming into the 2021 NFL season. Almost forgot it because we didn't leave our houses for a year, but it is 2021 now. Um, what do you got on your mind?
Just this team is so weird. Like looking at a team like the Falcons that placed higher than them, and even the Bengals too, that well not higher than them, but had worse records than them, higher in the draft than them, and the Eagles are here. It's just night and day between a couple of these teams that finished in the top five, and then the Eagles.
Well, it's amazing because, we've only got 16 now, 17 games in a football season, and it really leaves a lot of room for variability in how one team can be significantly better than another and just because of schedule can lose 3 or 4 more games than them.
Yeah, yeah.
And especially division-wise, it can make things even stranger. Um, Certainly. So, are you excited to get into some thoughts on their season last year?
Oh yes, I am. You want me to jump in first here?
Go right ahead.
All right, so the four games that I watched were the 49ers game, their Week 8 game against the Cowboys, the game against the Seahawks, and the game against the Cardinals. And my biggest takeaway from those games was Jalen Hurts needs help because a rookie quarterback, especially a rookie quarterback drafted in the second round, should not be like looking like Superman on the football field like he is for them. He is doing everything he can to will them to victory. And he's a second round rookie. Yeah, you can get that from Deshaun Watson or Russell Wilson, like guys that have established themselves in the league as guys that do that for their team. Not Jalen Hurts. It's just I felt so bad for him watching watching him. Uh the Eagles finished 4-11-1, and that record does not reflect how bad they were. They were worse than that. Like they got 4 wins because they play in the NFC East, and it makes me shake my head, man. It is just so disgusting watching them play. Like this was the least amount of fun that I had watching tapes on teams. It was just not fun to watch any of this. Uh,
Well,
the most
y- y-
the most fun was the Jalen Hurts Cardinals game, but other than that, it was just hard.
you chose to watch games where Carson Wentz was playing. I only you know what I did? I went okay. Where did Jalen Hurts get in? All right, we're starting from that point. And we went week 13, 14, 15, 16. I just did 4 games in a row because I didn't want to watch the week 17 game where he gets benched for no reason. So I just watched those 4 where he enters at halftime against the Packers. A bit here, I'll go through what I got. I like getting the ball to Jalen Reagor in creative ways, and I don't know if this is just because I was watching it later in the season, but it seemed like they actually did start to do that more. Rodgers targets Devontae Adams like 4 plays inside the 10 in a row. Sorry, this isn't an Eagles note, but it's just so ridiculous, and I probably won't watch this game again for the Packers video, so I have to take note of it now. And he targets Devontae Adams 4 times in a row inside the 10-yard line, and he finally catches the 4th one, and then it's like, wow, what a player. And all 4 of the plays were like scheme plays, too. They weren't like him doing anything incredible. And I'm just really interested to see what happens once Jordan Love is on the field because, he had 4 opportunities. He caught the 4th one, and I don't know. I'm just guessing Jordan Love isn't going to be as pinpoint accurate as Aaron Rodgers when he initially steps on the field. So maybe we'll see a little less fanboying towards Devontae Adams. I'm a big Alex Singleton fan. He's way underrated. I've just been really impressed with him the past year or maybe the past 2 years. I can't really remember exactly when he got in the league, but whenever I've watched him, I like him. Dallas Goedert getting open is good to see. It still seems like they want to move on from Zach Ertz, but I don't know. It's kind of weird there, but at least they're getting Dallas Goedert the starting spot basically in all the games I watch, so they kind of already have that in the mix. and know where they're headed. Jalen Hurts did at least ignite something in this team that really wasn't there once he stepped in the Packers game, and really it felt like he did that most of the time for this team because you're right. There's a lot of issues. I would say most of them actually come from the defensive side of the ball, though. I'm not. For some reason, even though the receiving room is really weak, there's something about adding Devontae Smith that makes me feel like it'll be significantly better. Every time they choose to run the ball, which is rarely, they rarely choose to run the ball, but I mean, just like the Cardinals a few years back, if you run the ball so little, it just makes it so that your run game becomes really efficient, so that's a nice piece of it. Unless you're the Buffalo Bills, then your run game still just sucks, even if you throw it 50 times a game. Let's see, where were we? Oh, Rieger really started showing promise late in the season. I was really surprised by this because basically from what everything I had been hearing was that I just felt like the idea was that he wasn't, but I actually liked what I was seeing from him later in the season. Jalen Hurts is like really itchy to get out of the pocket sometimes when he doesn't need to be. That's something that probably needs to be corrected, but to be honest, the opposite perspective of that is that he's doing great when he's scrambling, and in things like the 2-minute drill before halftime against the Saints, he killed it scrambling for first downs. And even designed quarterback runs were working well too for the Eagles. I would tell Sirianni to try to keep that involved in the playbook. The first quarter against Arizona was absolutely atrocious. They probably could have had a good shot at winning that game if it started in the second quarter or like they showed up for the first quarter, because the first quarter was the only issue. Quez Watkins put an absolute move on the entire defense against Arizona. I was like, that's awesome, but I doubt we'll hear from him ever again, so that's too bad. I'm honestly impressed by Greg Ward. I think he could be a fine number 3 wide receiver option, even though it's like a joke that he was the college quarterback, right, or whatever. Was he the high school quarterback? Yeah.
No, he's a college quarterback.
Okay. Just checking. I know you're really well educated on college quarterbacks that change positions.
Oh no, just Greg Ward.
This was really aggressive. They had a 4th and 6 from their own 45 with 2 minutes left in the third quarter, only down 6, and they go for it. That was really surprising to me. And Hurts runs for the first down on the play, and later he rushes for a touchdown on the drive. And Jalen Hurts continues to give chances to his team at the end of the game. So I like that. And then I just said the thing which I said earlier, which this is like the most anti-norm team in the league. And then my only notes from the Cowboys game are just the Cowboys smoked their whole secondary. And the Cowboys game felt like it was basically about as poorly as the Eagles could play. And honestly, for the perception of the Eagles, I feel like people would think that they would do... If you look at the final score of that game, it's bad. But like, if I say it's the worst version of the Eagles... And they lost I think it was 37-17 or 37-20. Not as terrible as I think other people may think they
are. Yeah, okay, I can get that. It's just with their placement and the amount of wins they had, I was just blown away with how worse than lackluster their play was. It was very, very bad.
You must expect a lot out of a 4-win team. I was not expecting a lot.
I didn't expect. Well, the thing is, I didn't expect a lot out of the Bengals, and I was more impressed with what I saw with the Bengals when they had Brandon Allen and Ryan Finley in at quarterback than Jalen Hurts, who I think is a better quarterback. But then again, they have better weapons than the Eagles have, so there's a contrast with that. Just last couple notes that I have. This also leads into stats. My last note leads into stats, so you can take it away after there. But I'm just at a complete loss with what happened to Carson Wentz. It just blows my mind to see his regression just so fast. It is mind-boggling. Miles Sanders is so underrated, and with the rate that the Eagles bring in running backs, I feel like he's just going to be relegated to like a Marlon Mack type of player in his career.
Boy, don't say that.
No, I don't want it to be that way because I really like watching Miles Sanders, but Marlon Mack is like now the third running back on his team, and he's probably the best running back on his team. And with the rate that the Eagles just constantly bring in people, like, yeah, come on, just someone take this guy's job. It feels like it's gonna go that way. And the last thing I have is Deshaun Jackson played 5 games, and he was 7th on the team in receiving yards, which isn't insane, but just having 236 yards in 5 games is kind of funny, especially with how bad that team was when they had an actual wide receiver on the field that wasn't a quarterback. It's like, oh, we're actually getting production out of this
Greg
guy.
Ward. Knock somebody else. I'm supporting Greg Ward. Greg Ward is my favorite Philadelphia Eagles former college quarterback turned wide receiver.
That's a real big knock on what's his face, the other guy that went to Arizona.
Oh, Khalil Tate.
Yeah, that's a big knock on Khalil Tate.
Yeah. Sorry, Khalil, but you got one guy ahead of you in a 2-person list. Stats wise, for me, my notes. Did you know that Jalen Hurts only completed 52% of his passes? Yeah, that's
I knew it wasn't high, but that's
pretty tough. There, this whole team actually does run the ball well. Like in terms of yards per carry, no one's low, but that's just because they need to I think they should be running the ball at least slightly more. I mean, you got a young quarterback. Do you really want to just put it all on him immediately? I guess he came from Oklahoma, so maybe he gets it, but I don't know. I just a little bit more. I'm not the type of person that's like you need to establish the run no matter what your team is, but just a little because they really are so successful with it. If they weren't as successful running the ball, I wouldn't say that, but no, yeah, they're having enough success that I think they should. Yeah, Greg Ward led the team with 53 catches, but Travis Fulgham led the team in yardage with 539. Let Jalen Reagor return more kicks. I mean, we got these guys that we bring in from college, and like one of their key awesome traits is the fact that they can return kicks, and then we just never put them on kick return or punt return. He got 4 punt returns last year, and he brought 1 back for a touchdown. So I mean, 25%. I mean, can it get much better? I mean, I'm sure that's guaranteed to hold if he returns kicks all year.
Yeah. I think with Devontae Smith and now and him not in like the number 1 role for receiver, they might put him back there.
I don't even think he was
More.
necessarily the number 1 before.
No, Travis Fulgham was.
No, Greg Ward was. Rodney McLeod had 7 passes defended. Darius Slay had 6 passes defended. Secondary is not impressive at all. Marcus Epps was the only person with multiple interceptions. He had 2. Josh Sweat had 3 forced fumbles. Brandon Graham, 8 sacks, 13 TFLs. Fletcher Cox, 6.5 sacks, 9 TFLs. Josh Sweat, 6 tackles and 9 TFLs. I'm pretty happy with the D-line production on this team. I think it comes down to other stuff besides the D-line, and they did not seem to get that memo at all for some reason. That is, I really disagree with this heavily. Alex Singleton had 120 tackles, and no one else came close to touching the number of tackles he had. Jake Elliott was pretty suspect on this season, just to be completely honest. And yeah, those are my statistical notes.
All right. You want to head to their free agency then?
Yep.
Oh, this should be like the fastest free agency we cover out of all these teams.
I have 2 players listed for acquisitions. I didn't bother.
I do too.
And one of them is named Joe Flacco. So how much can that?
One of mine is named Joe Flacco too. So hopefully we have the other guy.
Anthony Harris.
Yep.
I mean, there wasn't much of any other options, so.
Nope.
Yeah, geez. I mean, they had no cap space, and it sure shows with who they acquired. They bring in a, like as washed of a quarterback as you can get. And then Anthony Harris. I mean, Anthony Harris isn't a bad Jalen Mills replacement. The only thing is that Anthony Harris is probably only able to come to Philadelphia because he was cheap because he's getting older.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's the only reason. I don't know. Do you have anything to add to who they acquired? Because Flacco isn't going to be significant. Maybe even if because they signed Jamie Newman, Flacco may not even be significant if Hurts gets hurt because Jamie
yeah,
Newman may play
they,
instead.
they might cut Flacco. He might not even make it out of training camp.
Yeah.
But
Anthony Harris is a good signing, but it's just a Jalen
yeah,
Mills replacement who was pretty significant for them before. So once again, another team that's only acquiring players that really, at least in free agency, didn't improve their team at all.
yeah. But with their situation, I can understand why. Like they're like, well, we lost the starting safety, so let's just bring in a starting safety, and then hopefully we can hit other stuff in the draft.
Yeah, I know.
Uh,
You want me to just go through the losses?
yeah, I only have three, so
Oh, you got less than me. Well, the one thing I'll say also on top of this is like, could you imagine if all these guys listen to these names and just imagine if they were all in the prime of their career? Okay. Now I did add a few that like still wouldn't be that big of a deal if they're not in their prime, but most of them, like if they were in their prime, holy crap. Okay. Carson Wentz, Nate Sudfeld, Vinny Curry, Jalen Mills, Deshaun Jackson, Cameron Johnston, Malik Jackson, Alshon Jeffrey, Jason Peters, Nickel Roby-Coleman, Corey Clement, and Richard Rodgers. I don't think Richard Rodgers was significant at all last season, but threw him in there just because of name, I know.
mm, yeah. Well, I have three for losses, and then my list of guys that are still available are there. And I also had a different category just for the Wentz trade, but just for losses of guys that went and signed with other teams. Jalen Mills probably the biggest loss out of all of them. And then Deshaun Jackson goes to the Rams, and then they lose their punter. So,
Man, I just this has went downhill very quickly from the time they won the Super Bowl. These guys, I mean, a lot of these guys were really like pretty good on this like Super Bowl era team, if not like right after or whatever. And it's just wild to me how this changes so quickly. And now they all have to leave because they have no cap space. I don't know who they're paying. I honestly don't know who they're paying, but
Carson Wentz, maybe they're paying a majority of his contract.
but I mean, like, what he took up 90% of the salary cap.
Oh, no.
Who's the other guy? Darius
Yeah.
Slay. Like, who else is good? Darius Slay, the D lineman, and what? Like, nobody.
Lane Johnson,
there's
Brandon Graham,
the offensive line.
Darius Slay.
Like, you're paying an offensive line, a defensive line, and Darius Slay. How can you not figure this out? How can it be that bad at that point? I mean, I realize you got to pay people no matter what positions they are, but we're not talking about like always the most expensive positions here, like quarterback, because quarterback's gone, but we're still paying him. But it's just a really weird spot to be in.
Yeah. What do you think of the Wentz trade? I know we talked about this before, but what do you think about what they got back? And obviously the salary cap hit is just huge. That's probably the biggest part of it. Doesn't even matter the compensation, because I think the Eagles are just straight up losers of this trade. Even if that conditional second turns into a first next year, I think they still lose this trade because they're going to be paying a majority of his salary for like the next 3 years still.
I really don't think so. I don't. How well? Okay. Like you would rather have him on the team and continue to play crappily than off the team and get some capital for him. You have to pay him no matter what. You signed the contract at a certain point in time. It doesn't matter who signed it. The team signed it, so they're gonna have to pay him, and nobody's gonna take much of a better look at it. So I don't think it changes much. I think trading him is the right idea, because at least then you can go get some young talent with cheap enough contracts that actually basically just kind of act as if, say, or I guess Jalen Hurts is basically, I mean, you see, they're going to go, no matter what they do at the quarterback position, even if they realize a year from now that Jalen Hurts is not the answer, they have themselves in a position where they have picks that will make it so they are now, like, they're just ready to get a quarterback that's young and on a rookie deal. So, I mean, if you're not paying a rookie quarterback or a quarterback that's under a rookie contract, it's really hard to say that. Jeez, it's just sorry. This is just really a hard thing to like kind of wrap your mind around, because if you want a quarterback that's a veteran, you're going to have to pay him a significant amount of money. And they wanted him for a time. It's just that now you've got the rookie quarterback, and the advantage of that is that you have the low contract. But Jalen Hurts is basically just acting like he has Carson Wentz contract now. It's basically like you're paying Jalen Hurts a veteran contract, even though the money's not going to him. That's how it works. I mean, it's not like they're paying two quarterbacks like veteran quarterback money now. If that were the case, this would be horrible. But yeah, they're not. They're paying a young guy to replace Carson Wentz, and he could actually end up becoming the answer for the team in the future. So I think it works, and I really didn't see the advantage of having him continue to be on the roster, continue to play crappily, and get nothing out of the contract at all. That's not to say his career couldn't be revitalized in Indianapolis, but I was never that big of a Carson Wentz fan in the first place. So, I mean, I don't really know if I would have paid the contract that quickly. I'm kind of afraid that the Bills will pay Josh Allen too quickly, even though he just went absolutely off. I would try to hold out as long as I possibly could before I paid him, just to make sure that it's the real thing and it's not like one off fluke season that happened. But it's still, I mean, I just don't know how keeping him on the roster makes things better. They have to pay him no matter what. At least they got some capital in return for him not doing anything. He wasn't doing anything for their team, and they got something for him. So I think it's completely the right decision. And I think that pick will turn into a first-round pick as well.
Okay, I'm going to try to be more concise with how I view this. If you look at this like it's a scale, they typify the scale. I think maybe not lost it. It's a net neutral for them by getting rid of Wentz. But by getting rid of Wentz, I think the neutrality in it just comes, you're paying him, but he's not on the roster anymore. So you free up a roster spot. You get a third-round pick that was a defensive tackle this year, and you can get a first or a second. I think it'd be hilarious if they get the second. I'm pretty sure they'll get the first because he's most likely going to make the roster next year. But if the Colts cut him, then the Eagles are stuck paying for a guy that's not even going to be on an NFL roster then. And their
What do you mean?
If
They cut him after next season, or if they cut him this season?
If they cut him after next season, like after the upcoming season, before they go into 2022 and they cut him.
That would be
that conditional becomes a second round pick then.
That would be really surprising because I don't see any world. I don't see any world where the Colts are like, they have to be like a top 15, I want to say top like 14 team in the NFL, even if they miss the playoffs. No, 7 teams make it in each conference now, but I guess you could have more in the or you could have better teams or worse teams make it in the NFC or whatever. If they're like the 14th best record or better, which is where I'd say the Colts are in that range, I don't know how they're going to be like, okay, even if they're all the way at the bottom of that, that's not until pick 18 in the NFL draft. I don't know how they're going to be like, okay, rookie quarterback time, let's go. Unless they really want to start trading their future, which it doesn't seem like a Colts move. A Colts move seems like they've been good about their roster building, and I don't think that they are a team that looks to trade up often. I don't think they're going to be high enough up where it's going to be like, oh, we want a quarterback. So I don't think that's it.
Okay.
So what tips the scale though? Because okay, they cut
the scale. The scale's even now. That's what I'm saying. The scale is even. The Eagles didn't gain or lose anything, and what the Colts gave up, it's like, oh yeah, we get a quarterback now. They gained nothing by keeping Wentz. And the situation that they handled with Wentz is absolutely terrible because it seemed like it was between Wentz and Doug Peterson. That was the choice for the front office to make. Do we keep our franchise quarterback, or do we keep the guy that won us a Super Bowl? So then they get rid of the guy that won them the Super Bowl, and you're thinking, oh, okay, so they're going with Wentz. And then they get rid of him, and now you're bringing in a guy, in Nick Sirianni, who we both liked him. I'm not as high as him. I think he's the worst coaching hire out of all of these. But you're high on him because you thought he'd be fully committed to Jalen Hurts. And then one of the first things he says is when they signed Joe Flacco is that it's an open competition and he wants like Flacco to compete with him. I know that it's not 100. Yeah, I know he's just saying that. But if it does happen, if anything like that happens and Joe Flacco somehow wins it, because I know he's just saying that, but I would not be surprised if Joe Flacco somehow got the
Then
reins.
you don't think that he's just saying it. Those are the opposite things. You don't think
Yeah,
that he's
I
just
don't
saying
think he's just saying. I don't think he's just saying it. Then I'm trying to get as many words out as I can before you interject again and go on a 5-minute ramble. Uh, it's the scale is even. There was no gain or loss there, and well, actually, meh. It's the scale's a little bit this way because the salary cap is ridiculous for them now, and it's going to be ridiculous for like the next 2 years, 2-ish years, unless they find some way to clear it up. And I don't think Roseman is intelligent enough to clear it up for them. What they need to do instead of this Wentz thing is just scrap the whole front office and also just tear the whole thing apart. It like the trade was not good. I think they could have held off longer and maybe gotten something better closer to the draft as teams realize. Like I think they could have held out from the Colts longer and gotten more from them.
You think that many teams saw
I don't
Carson
think that
Wentz?
I don't think that many teams were clamoring for them, but I think they could have gotten more from the Colts if they would have waited longer.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I doubt it. I
Okay.
I really doubt
Okay.
it. They
Okay.
they have a potential first round pick in the future for this guy who looked atrocious last season. He looked awful all season when he was playing in games.
I agree. I agree. You're saying stuff that I agree with.
So why would teams be like, "Oh, okay, actually we'll give you a straight up real first round pick here." Who like the
Because you're
Colts.
making them sweat it out more. That's the only thing. Because you're making them sweat it out more. And the Eagles the reason that the trade also fell through is one, I think they pulled the trigger too quick on it, and two, they showed their hand immediately by like saying like as soon as the season ended, yeah, we're committed to Jalen Hurts. I think they could have made maybe the Colts and another team sweat it out. I think they could have gotten some good capital from the Texans if they would have let this whole Deshaun Watson situation play out, because the Texans' first thing they did was draft Davis Mills. They definitely could have offloaded Wentz to the Texans for a decent load.
Hey, I'm not saying anything that I'm never going to say that the Texans wouldn't do something, cuz that's just a terrible idea, but no, I okay. If you don't remember, we like our second episode, we went through every team and what we thought about every team.
And we
You're
both agreed
saying
that Carson Wentz was bad. Yes, I remember.
no. That's not the piece. You're forgetting a piece. You say that we knew right when their season ended, we knew that Jalen Hurts was going to be the starter next season. We didn't. That discussion we had about the Eagles in that second episode was about the fact that we didn't know, since Doug Peterson was gone, we didn't know if that meant that since he's gone, they're going to put the trust back in Carson Wentz or go directly to Jalen Hurts. They didn't show their hand immediately. They waited and they traded him. They obviously took offers about him.
Right, so
and
that
I
goes
really
into
don't. I don't.
goes into the other point that I made of them pulling the trigger too quick on it. They could have made teams sweat it out more.
Really, you really think teams are looking at Carson Wentz and going, "Boy, if we don't get this guy, we're going to be
Two teams in
screwed."
the AFC South, the two teams in the AFC South,
I don't.
Colts and the Texans.
Okay, were you expecting them to know that? Like,
No, because the Colts would have been screwed in a sense if they don't get Wentz, because who's their quarterback then? Sam
Dude,
Ellinger,
this
Jacob
has
Eason.
been the biggest like quarterback movement offseason ever, and we're still looking at like multiple guys that could change teams before the season now. So how can you say that like that there would be
There's two main guys. There's two main guys that can change teams, and there's no way the Texans offload Deshaun Watson to the Colts. And Rodgers probably wouldn't. Well, Rodgers may want to go to the Colts, but I can't see the Packers giving up. I can't see the Colts having a package for the Packers to get Rodgers.
Exactly. But guess what? If they didn't have Carson Wentz, it would make a lot of difference. If they had no other quarterback, we saw so many other quarterbacks that changed team. I mean, there's even other guys you're not mentioning, like Jimmy Garoppolo. We don't really know what's going on there because they're just gonna say stuff until he's. If they got a good enough offer, I'm sure they'd send him away like nothing. But they're not. There's so many guys that could have changed teams this offseason. You're way over exaggerating. This Carson Wentz is worth so much more. You're like way
I don't think
overvalued.
he's worth a lot. I'm just saying that the way the Eagles handled it was bad.
I don't think so. I really don't.
Okay.
The draft, I will say, the draft, like, I absolutely applauded their first round selection. After that, this is pretty much like, I don't think there's like a pick I like after the first round, honestly. Like, not really much at all. Maybe one, but we'll get around to it. I'll just say what I got on these guys quick. Um, that is starting with Devontae Smith. I love this pick. No complaints at all about getting an amazing number one wide receiver for a young quarterback. That way he actually has someone that he knows he can always throw to. Uh, there really isn't any... it's just no question that he's going to be the number one when he comes in, and that's going to be really nice for him to know that he's the first guy he should always look to. And then we could pass off to guys like Greg Ward and Jalen Reagor, and maybe with a little more attention on somebody else, those two could actually be even more successful. And considering Jalen Reagor, in my opinion, started to come on later in the season, then maybe that means that we even see like a decent, like, 700 plus yard receiving year for Reagor as well as Devontae Smith, with Devontae Smith having even more yards than that. I have no idea how much Sirianni's going to try to pass the ball. I'm expecting it's still going to be heavier pass than run, but maybe not necessarily with other places he's been. One thing that I kind of feel like with what I remember where he came from is probably we'll see a significant increase in the screen game. So that's one way that the offense could probably change a little bit, more screen passes. And then the second round is where we get started with picks I just don't like. They still have Jason Kelce on the team, and for some reason they picked Landon Dickerson. Jason Kelce's getting a little up there in age, but and Landon Dickerson's good, but geez, really, you're going to go with a lineman at a position you don't currently need, and not only that, but he has injury concerns. I don't know about this in the second round. That's not something I love. Milton Williams in the third round. He shows some solid ability playing at Louisiana Tech. Makes competition questionable. I would not have taken him this early or targeted this position with your team. Basically, this defensive line run they go on for no reason is absolutely ridiculous to me. I don't know why they needed to keep grabbing defensive linemen instead of like other linebackers so that maybe Alex Singleton could have any help at the linebacker position or corners or any sort of safety depth at all much earlier than they did. This was ridiculous to me. Even I wouldn't have even been mad if they went with another receiver. Even though I'm kind of high on those other guys, if they went another receiver, I probably would have been more happy than them grabbing these D linemen. Zach McPherson is the first guy that was outside the first round that I'm okay with. He was a turnover machine, corner, good positional pick. They needed corners, so that's good. Then Kenneth Gainwell, he's pretty similar to Miles Sanders in that he can do a little bit of everything, but I guess this just means that they don't like Boston Scott, who I was never like that down on, so I just feel like there's other positions they could have went to here to fill a role a bit better. Then they go another D lineman who's very athletic and he's huge, but I still don't know why they're addressing D line. In Martin Tuipulotu. And then Teron Jackson is another D lineman. I don't get this. He has a good swim move, but once again, he's low-level competition, so that's not a great thing. Jacoby Stevens is an interesting hybrid safety, but honestly, there were so many other guys at the position that I loved like earlier in the draft that are just like obviously better. I have no idea why they were busy taking defensive linemen when they could have taken a safety earlier that was significantly better from my perspective. And Patrick Johnson, this is their fourth defensive lineman, I think, from the same draft, and all the same solid production from small schools, and they're gonna really need to tap into these kids' potentials because I just don't get why we're spamming D-line picks. It doesn't make any sense to me with what I feel is still a pretty solid defensive line for them, and the only undrafted free agent I mentioned is Jamie Newman because he's got a good style that kind of matches Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, I feel about the same way about their draft that you do. I mean, they take their first two picks are from the biggest they're from Bama, and then after that it's just like Sirianni can coach up these like small school guys and get their potential out of them. Which, I mean, that you're putting a lot of faith into a first-time head coach and a guy that it seems like wasn't their first choice or was a guy that was like a desperate like last-second grab for them. But Devontae Smith, uh, I do like him. I mean, his body concerns are a thing, but obviously, like that's just me. That's just how I view it. He's gonna be a playmaker, number one wide receiver instantly. Not much more to say on that. Landon Dickerson, he's versatile. He's played every single position on the offensive line during his college career, but he has some injury concerns throughout his college career that have plagued him. Uh, and also his main position, center. That's the latest position he played consistently at Bama. And you have Jason Kelsey, so maybe they're planning on moving away from Kelsey after training camp, and then even adding more to their dead cap. Who knows? Milton Williams. I mean, yeah, he's good competition to have on the D line, but the D line's solid, so I don't know why they'd bring him in. Zach McPherson. They address a position of need by getting a corner. I think they probably should have just only drafted corners exclusively and then maybe scatter in a wide receiver or two throughout it. But they're just that corner position is one of the weakest on their is the weakest on their roster. They get Kenneth Gainwell. I don't know why you draft a running back here, especially with how solid the room of running backs they have already is. If they want to draft a running back, I'd probably wait until the 7th round to pick one up. Yeah. You got Marlon Tuipulotu. He's, again, solid competition on that D-line, but you don't really need to create competition on a unit that is already as solid as it is. Same goes with Taron Jackson. I wrote the same exact thing for him. Don't need to create competition on a unit that is already solid. Jacoby Stevens, they get a safety. No, person in the secondary is fine. Sit behind Anthony Harris. I mean, small schools, man. You're just really hoping that the coaching staff that Sirianni brings in is just getting the most out of all these guys. Hopefully he produces a lot on special teams. That same goes for
Stevens?
Patrick Johnson. Yeah.
Isn't he from LSU?
Oh, yes. Sorry. But still, same for special teams. He still has to produce on special teams to have any impact immediately.
Yeah. All the D linemen are small school guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then Patrick Johnson. I mean, at that point when I was watching all the D linemen guys in this draft, it's like, come on, guys.
I don't get it. What did they look at and go, we need defensive linemen? Did you at all like look at them?
Maybe
and go,
they just think they're going to move on from all the old guys that are on the roster. This, like, if they were going to do that, maybe they're waiting until after June 1st when the dead cap money doesn't have that big of a hit on them, and they're just waiting to move on from all these guys. But I would have just kept trading back in the draft and accumulating more and more late round picks then if you're just going to like throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks.
Well, if you're going to do that, I wouldn't even do that. I wouldn't accumulate late round draft picks. I would move back, but I would say we need a pick next year along, like swap picks in the current round and then get a pick next year so that you can do more with the cap space so that even though they are rookie contracts, if you have a ton of them, they'll add up. So just try to move on from all these giant contracts that we still have while we were trying to win a Super Bowl again, and just move along with it because yuck.
Yeah, I think that has to be their plan of attack. If they have any plan of attack, is just wait until after June 1st and get rid of a lot of these costly vets and replace them with all these young guys and really embrace being bad.
Yeah. I mean, we can disagree on the value of a pick when compared to a current player, but I mean, I feel like we're pretty much on the exact same page with where the current roster sits and kind of how that draft and the free agency went in terms of players that they got to try to fill in needs. That was pretty terrible. That was not good at all.
Yes.
Yeah, it's fun to have interesting players like Jalen Hurts, but I mean, this is still a team, and I don't know. I just don't know.
The sad thing is, this team looks like it's going to be very bad, but they're in the NFC, so you can never count them out. They might just luck into it and win the division.
I don't think so. I really
Oh,
don't think so.
I know, but I mean anything can happen,
I don't think so.
especially in that division.
Although I do think they're only the second worst team in the division.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Second worst, so they're the third best.
Yeah.
Gotta look at it that way.
Yeah. But I'm saying there's a team that's worse than them in this division, just based off what I think currently. Their over-under for wins is 6.5. Since we have some order, I've actually got the schedule in order here for what I think. I think the week 1 game at Atlanta is a toss-up. I don't really know if I want to pick either team with new coaches too strongly. I'd probably lean Atlanta, but I'll give them a toss-up in that one. I think the 49ers game is an L. That one's at home, but still L. At the Cowboys, I think that's going to be an L. I think the Cowboys are probably going to be a lot better, especially if their quarterback plays every week of the season. Chiefs, L. Panthers, they're going to Carolina. I think that's a toss-up game. I'm really interested to see what Darnold ends up doing with that offense, with how many weapons are kind of on it now, It seems like a pretty a better offense than he had with the New York Jets, and I think someone like Christian McCaffrey can sure make you look like a heck of a lot better quarterback than you are. The Buccaneers, I would say they're going to lose that game at Las Vegas. Maybe this is a game I should have thought about a little more, just because the Raiders play oddly sometimes, but I just gave them an L in that one. At Detroit, gave them the dub there. Chargers, L. I think the Chargers are going to be good. Broncos, toss-up, because the Broncos we have no idea how they're going to look by the time the season starts. The Saints game at home, I think, is a toss-up as well, just because they were able to beat the Saints last year, and I don't know how much difference the roster is going to be, but they beat them at home last year when they didn't have Drew Brees. They don't have Drew Brees this year. I don't see why they can't do it again, but still not going to give them the win straight up, just toss up. Giants, though, at the New York Giants, I think that's a win. At the New York Jets, I think that's a win. Then they go into the bye week. They've got a game at home against the football team, and I don't want to say that they're completely out of it yet, so I'll say toss up against the football team. Then they play the Giants again. Say that's a W. The second time around, they have to go to Washington. I think that's an L. And then they play the Cowboys at home, which is an L as well. And taking my toss-up games and cutting them in half for wins and losses, that leaves them at a 6-11 record, which is half a game over the over-under. And honestly, yeah, once again, not feeling too strongly about this team in terms of the difference in the over-under. I mean, the people that make these obviously do a lot of research, and I think they're fairly accurate most of the time. I still think that this is the sixth team we've done, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, and I think still the Jaguars is probably the one that I would, if I had to take one, just off the top of my head, I think the Jaguars, maybe Atlanta would be the two that I would kind of be willing to risk the most. I don't know. Maybe I'm forgetting a team already, but I feel like those are the two best ones we've seen so far in terms of beating their over-under projections.
6.5, you said, is their over-under?
Yeah.
Okay. Going their schedule for me, I have it all in order too. So, week 1 at Atlanta, giving them the L there. Home against San Fran, that's an L. At Dallas, that's an L. At home against Kansas City, that's an L. At Carolina, that's an L. At home against Tampa, that's an L. At Las Vegas, that's an L. At Detroit, that's a dub.
Oh boy, what's that put them at? 1-7?
I think so. At home against the Chargers, that's an L. At Denver, that's a dub. Wow. At home against New Orleans, that's an L. At the Giants, that's an L. At the Jets, that's an L. Bye week. Home against the football team is an L. Home against the Giants is a dub. At the football team is an L. At home against Dallas is an L.
So, 4?
3-14.
Oh, 3. Oh, wow. Wonderful. Wow. I don't buy that. I don't think so. That's a
I
little.
don't know.
That's
I don't know.
That's a little too low for me. They're playing New York teams 3 times, and you gave them 1 win in those games. That's pretty tough.
Well, the New York games were that was a divisional game that I think are toss up. So I gave them the home one. I gave the loss at the away one.
Yeah,
The Jets game though, yeah, I don't. Zach Wilson. I think he's gonna pull something out in that game. I don't know. The Jets have an all around better roster than the Eagles do. So, especially if I didn't even consider what I said about the draft and their free agency and everything about getting rid of the vets, but especially if that happens, then I could see them having even a worse record than that. Nothing compared to the Texans record that I predicted, but still, just
was the Texans record 1 or 2 wins?
1 win.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, I don't think this team is going to be very much good. Jalen Hurts is going to try, though. These are going to be. They might not win a lot of games, but almost all their games are going to be entertaining because Jalen Hurts is playing, and Jalen Hurts is going to put the team on his back. Devontae Smith may win Rookie of the Year because he's just going to rack up a bunch of like garbage time yards and like not garbage time touchdowns, but he's going to be Jalen Hurts' main target. I think it's good. Their games are going to be fun to watch. That connection between the two is going to be fun.
I don't think they're going to have as much trouble scoring points as you think they're going to. That offensive line is still really good. And
I didn't say that they'll have a problem scoring points. I just, the team is not good. That secondary is going to get torched. Teams are going to be able to just keep up scoring against them. And if it comes down to, it's the same thing with the Falcons, but the Falcons have a way better offense those games are going to be shootouts, and it's just going to be the other team has like one good guy in their secondary. Like they have Darius Slay, and he's mediocre. He's not going to like shut down someone. So I just think it comes down to a shootout, and that other team is going to get the stop in almost all the games.
So like what you see their Kansas City game. What do you think the score is going to be there?
Oh, they're going to get stomped in that game.
What do you think the score is going to be though? I mean, I don't think it'll be close, but like I mean, Kansas City's a team I could see them like yes, they could probably get some garbage time stuff in that game. But I don't think that's going to be the case most of the time. I think you're right about Devontae Smith having a heck of a year. I just don't want to say that it's exclusively because of garbage time though.
I think that game would be like 38-24. Something like that.
That's not even as bad as I could see it. Like I mean, Kansas City, jeez. Not even 40? That's a good game against Kansas City.
Like I said, they're not going to be playing bad. It's just like their team isn't going to be.
They're not going to be playing bad, but Devontae Smith is going to have a ton of garbage time receiving yards.
They're not going to be bad. They just can't keep up with the team. So yeah, Devontae Smith will have garbage time yards because they will be down in games.
I think they'll be down, but I think they'll be in it. Like I just don't think they'll be completely out of it.
No, like I am all my records are staying consistent with all the games that I'm calling previously and all the games I will call. They will change before the start of the season. When I look back at it and look back on these teams, I don't think this will change though for the Eagles. Nothing with that Eagles team impresses me besides Jalen Hurts and his potential connection with Devontae Smith.
Alrighty then. I mean, I'm so sorry that we had a heated disagreement about how much Carson Wentz is worth when it really doesn't matter at all. But
well, I expect to reignite this during the Colts episode as well.
What? Why?
Oh, because I just want to say how great of a deal the Colts got.
Oh, okay. What if he's the only thing that holds back the Colts this season? I mean, yeah, I guess it still doesn't matter because they don't even need to keep him. But no, I just
they got Jacob Eason.
I don't know what the other option was for the Eagles, and that's all I can say about it.
Their other option was Jacob Eason.
No, the Eagles. I don't know what the other option for the Eagles was.
They could have retained Nate Sudfeld.
By keeping Carson Wentz on the roster.
Well, yeah, dude, they're bros.
That's a great spot to end it. Are you all set?
Yeah, I think we can cut it here.